Another Washburn Tech Tricks video. Today I'm going to be showing teachers actually how to use Google Classroom. So if you are a student, this is not the video for you. Go look for our video titled Google Classroom for Students. This is for teachers. So if you're a teacher, Google Classroom is a very useful tool for managing assignments online, especially during distance learning. And so I'm just going to show you some of the basics of it. So to start off, you can see I've created two classes. If you don't know how to create a class, when you go to classroom.google.com, just go up to this little plus right here, click it, click create class. You won't have that checkbox because you have a school enterprise Google account, and then you can put your class name, which is required, section, which I think is important, like for each hour, so hour 1, 2, 3, 4. You make a different class for each. And then if you want, you can add subject and room. Since I've already made classes, I'm not going to create another one. But once you've created your class, it'll take you to your class's stream and homepage. So when you first pop into a class, you'll have a stream, and think of your stream as almost like the social media kind of aspect of Google Classroom, in the sense that you can post stuff, like whether it's assignments, announcements, or whatever, and it sorts it chronologically in a list that students are able to view. So as you can see, I've already posted one assignment a little while ago in the stream. You can post other things, like for example, if I wanted to just leave a comment like, remember, complete your assignment, I can do so. And I can choose if I want to go to all students, or I could just select an individual student who's enrolled in my class and click post. And that would not only send an email to your students if they have notifications turned on for Google Classroom, but if they don't, it will be at the top of their stream so that when they first sign into the class, they will see that announcement. There's some other little things you can change with Google Classroom in the stream page. The first is that you can choose the theme that you want. Now this isn't super important, but it's nice to add just a little personalization, especially if you have multiple classes. The theme can help you differentiate which class is which. So I could change it to, let's say, this graduation image, for instance. And yeah, and it gives me this blue color, whereas if I chose this green background with the phones, it gives me a more green color and helps differentiate my classes. Before you create assignments, it's also important that you review the settings of your class. This is where, let's say, you could also change your class name if you need to, or your section. But that's not so much the important stuff. The important stuff is in this general box. So the class code, you can see that on the home page on the theme. I'll show you that in a second when we leave. This is how your students join the class. It's auto-generated by Google, but there are a few options you have with it. You can choose to display it, so when you're in class, you can put this on your Promethean board and display it so it will be big and students can see it. You could copy it so that you could paste it in an email that you send the students. You can reset it, which generates a new code, or you could disable, which prevents people from using that code and joining your class at the time. I wouldn't recommend disabling your code unless you're having issues of random people joining, but you can also remove students from your class if that happens. This next thing involves the stream. So as I showed you, I just posted a little note about remembering to complete the assignment. By default, students are also allowed to post in that stream. And generally, I think that that's fine. Students, in my experience, haven't really posted. But if they have a question, it's kind of a nice opportunity. But if you have an issue with that, you can change it to either students can only comment. As you'll see later, there are options to comment on either those messages I just put or assignments in the stream. Or you can completely change it to only teachers can post or comment, leaving it so students cannot leave notes on Google Classroom, which could be useful depending on your circumstance. These last two options aren't as important, but you can choose for if you put an assignment on, do you want to just show a condensed notification, or do you want to show all the attachment details? I think condensed notifications are good. because then it requires the student to click on it and then read all the instructions before just jumping into the attachments and completing the assignment. And show deleted items, I would recommend leaving this off because if you delete an item, you most likely don't want your students to see it. You also do not need to worry about this grading section because you have a gradebook provided by Minneapolis Public Schools. This is for schools that do not have a gradebook. And as I said before, the class code is also right here in case you forget it or don't want to go into settings. Classwork tab. This is probably where you will be spending the majority of your time as a teacher on Google Classroom because this is where you can create assignments and also organize assignments. So when you click on Classwork, you will see any assignments that you've made. I've just made one. If you haven't created an assignment before, you won't see anything. But you'll also see a Create button in this top left. So I'm going to start by clicking on the Create button, and you can see that you have a few options. You can just make an assignment, a quiz assignment, a question, a material, or you can reuse a post, and then at the very bottom you can create a topic. So I'll be going over each of these in more detail, but just to sum it up, an assignment is something where you give students the opportunity to either fill out a Google Doc or Word document that you've already made, like a worksheet, or give them a chance to upload their own files to submit for your review and grading. A quiz assignment means that you've created a Google form, usually with multiple choice or short answer, where you can train the Google form to automatically grade that quiz for you. A question is just something you post where it's more of an informal assignment where you ask a question and a student can respond, and you can change the settings so that either only the teachers can read the responses or that once a student posts it, they can see responses that their other classmates have posted and comment and have a discussion like that. A material, which isn't really an assignment, but instead just like a resource, so you could put like helpful links or helpful documents in the material, so it's not an official assignment, but it might be something that students might find helpful when completing assignments. Reusing a post means if you've posted, say, an assignment before and you want to do another assignment, or you have like a recurring assignment, you can duplicate that post and just modify it briefly so you don't have to go through the process of creating an entire new assignment. And then a topic is how you organize all of the above assignments. So I think the most logical way would be like create a topic for each unit. So I'm going to start out by showing topics. So I'm going to create a topic. I'll just call it Unit 1. And you'll see that it's added below. And so for organizational purposes, you can drag your assignments around between topics. So let's say I create another topic, Unit 2. I can drag not only the assignments into different topics, but I can also drag the topics around as well. And this is handy because in the stream it can get busy, especially if you use a lot of assignments for Google Classroom. And for students to find specific assignments that they're supposed to do, it can be helpful to break it down into units or weeks even, perhaps, of assignments, so that it's easy to find and a little more organized than just a stream where students are constantly scrolling trying to find stuff. Create a material in the Classwork tab, so I'm going to go to Create Material. And as I mentioned before, this is just more of like a resource that you're offering, not an official assignment where students turn anything in. So I might say a helpful material could be like Romeo and Juliet helpful information. And I mean, not being an English teacher, the only helpful information I have is Romeo and Juliet is a play, not a novel. So, but in general, like if you were truly creating this material, you might add a file or a Google Drive or a website or video describing some of the details of Romeo and Juliet. You could also create a Google Drive file. So say you didn't have a Google Drive file readily available, you could create one and create a docs or a presentation or a sheets, something along those lines, and that would save into your Google Drive, but it could be a resource where when you post it, students could view it and hopefully learn how to do it. And then coming over here, this class is for English 9 Section 1, but let's say I teach 2 sections of English 9, like for hour 1, hour 2. Instead of doing this post twice, if I go up to 4 and click English 9 2, it'll post it in both classes. That's also helpful. If I didn't want to, one other little helpful tip is if you have multiple classes selected, you can't necessarily do this. But if you have only one class selected, you can choose which students it goes to. So right now all students are checked, but let's say I only want to go to this Washburn Text student. I could uncheck all students and just check, well, since there's only one student enrolled in this class, it says all students, but you could in theory choose a specific set of students to assign this material to. And then finally here, I mean, you can drag and reorganize if you don't fill this out initially, but you can also choose what topic. So you could either create a new topic, or I'm just going to put this in Unit 1. With posting, you can either post it now, or if you click this little arrow, you can it'll give you the option to post, schedule, which means it'll post at a specific time of your choosing. You can save a draft, meaning you're not ready to post it, but you also don't want to delete it yet. And so you can come back, work on it, and then post it, or you can just delete it if you don't like what you're doing. I'm just going to post, and now you'll see I have my material in Unit 1, Helpful Information. The next thing I'm going to show you how to do is use this question tool. So let's say I have a question, like I want to do something a little like a seminar, but not really, like it's maybe not as big of a question or whatever, but I still want students to think about a question, respond to it, and then see each other's answers. I can just create a question right here and have them respond. So perhaps, what do you think of Romeo and Juliet? I can choose whether I want this to be a short answer or multiple choice. I think for the sake of the question, short answer works better. I can provide instructions if I want, but I feel like the question is pretty self-explanatory. Could also, similar to the material, add a resource. I can add Google Drive files, website links, computer files, or YouTube videos, or create a Google Drive file from this right here. But I don't think I need to do that for this either. Again, you can choose which classes you want to assign it to. For sure, my English 9 Section 1, I'll assign it to my English 9 Section 2 class as well. Here, choose how many points. Now, since you don't use the gradebook function, this doesn't matter as much in Google Classroom, but it is still nice, like, to give the point value that you'll assign to it in your Minneapolis gradebook. So we'll make this question worth 10 points. Since it is an assignment, you can pick a due date. Right now there is no due date, but I would recommend picking one, so we'll say it's due tomorrow at 8 a.m. Again, I'll assign it to a topic, Unit 1. And then this is where it's very unique to the situation. If you have a question where you as the teacher only want to see the answer, unchecked students can reply to each other. This will not allow them to see classmates' answers. It will only allow you as the teacher to see it. But I'm assuming that if you're using this feature, you want students to interact with each other and kind of have more of a discussion where they can leave comments. So then you can leave this checked, and then you have the option to allow students to edit their answer after viewing others, or if it has to stay firm. Again, with the ask, you have the options to ask. Since it is due so soon, I cannot schedule, but if my due date was pushed farther out, I could schedule. I can save the draft, or I can discard the draft. I'm just going to ask. And there it is, I have my question in Unit 1. It's probably the most used feature in Google Classroom, which is the assignment. So create assignment under the Classwork tab, and here we go. This is probably what most of you will be using this for. So let's say I'm assigning an essay on Romeo and Juliet. So I'll call this Romeo and Juliet essay. Alright, I can provide instructions. This would be helpful, like if you have an assignment sheet, to either copy and paste the information from the assignment sheet, Or, like I've shown in the material in question, you can add the file. So like you could even add the assignment sheet file, link it to this, so the students have that at their disposal when going. But I'll just say write an essay analyzing the downfall of the titular characters relationship. That will just be my instruction. But I would encourage you to add an assignment sheet file from your computer or Google Drive here so that students can view it. Again, for English 9, I might make it for my second hour as well. All students, points, assign the point value in the gradebook. I would say this is probably 50 points. Could assign a due date. I'll give this one more of a week. Can say due at midnight on that Friday, May 8th. And topic, this is still Unit 1. So all of this has been pretty similar to the other material and question that we've seen before. What's different about the assignment is the assignment gives the student the option to upload their own file. So it might have them upload a Google Doc that they've created right in the essay, or a Word document, or a PDF, or you could have them upload a photo. It's really up to you what you want them to upload and instruction, but they can upload basically any type of file, a video, audio recording, anything, and turn that into you for you as a teacher to view, grade, and then return to them. And I'll talk about what returning is in a little bit. So that's what's beneficial about the assignment tab. There are also a few other things that I'll show you with assignments that are really nice in a minute. But one thing I want to go over is that you can also create rubrics on Google Classroom now, which is really nice. So if you click Add Rubric, I would recommend creating a rubric, because if you import from Sheets, it's wanting you to have used a rubric beforehand because there's a special format that it goes through. But if I click Create Rubric, I can create multiple criterion and change the point values in each criteria. So it's a little confusing how this works, but maybe I'll say grammar. I can create criterion of up to 5 points, so 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So this would be grammar. I could add a criterion that's maybe content and go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And basically what this is doing is this is creating a graphic for the students when they view the assignment of a rubric. So you'll have, so they'll see a grammar heading, and underneath they'll see you can get 5 points, 4 points, 3 points, 2 points, or 1 point. You can add like a title, so like maybe this is excellent, for instance, and then add a description like no errors or something like that. And they'll see all of this. So this would be a good spot to put, like, to get 5 points, there has to be no errors, 4 points, minimal errors, something along those lines. Same with content, like to write for 5 points in content, this is what you need. And this will allow students to kind of better understand the assignment, especially if you didn't attach an assignment sheet and know what they need to do. So I'll just save this rudimentary rubric that I've made. And again, I can schedule the assignment, but since I've given it a due date, I cannot schedule right now when I want it to assign. So I'll just assign it. And again, you'll see it's in my Unit 1. I want to go over a few other things that you can do with assignments, specifically regarding like what students have access to turn in. So one of the really handy things you can do with Google Classroom is if you have a worksheet, you can upload this file using the add, but then make a copy for each student. So it's not just uploading a file that they can see, but uploading a copy for each student. So for instance, I'll go Romeo or sonnet practice, for instance. And I've created a Google Doc worksheet for practicing writing a sonnet. And so I will select Add Google Drive. Recent, there we go right there, Poems worksheet. And so this is where the settings come. Right now it's just students can view file, which would be like if you were just posting materials such as like an assignment, rubric, or instructions. You could say students can edit a file, and I'll show you what use this will have in the next one. Or you can choose make a copy for each student. And so if I select that, instead of students turning in their own file for this assignment will pop up in their Google Classroom. They can click on it, they can edit, and then they will submit it. But it still follows the layout I've given it. So like if I open this, for instance, you can see I've given instructions and made a worksheet that I want them to fill out. I don't just want them to create their own document. Again, I'll make it both hours, all students. Points you can choose, due date you can choose, topic I'll choose Unit 1. I could add a rubric if I want, and then I'll just click Assign. All right. You can also upload other files other than just Google Drive files. For instance, you can upload Word documents and PDFs, for instance. So I'll show you something like that right now and make copies of those for each student. So I can add a file, select from my device. I have a literary devices and a Romeo and Juliet worksheet. One's a Word document, one's a PDF. But I want to put them, let's just say, in one assignment for the sake of time and efficiency. So I'll name this Classwork. I can make a copy for each student. And so even though these aren't Google Drive documents, students still technically can edit them. With the Word document, students can edit Word documents in Google Docs. So you don't have to go through all the trouble of converting a Word document to a Google Doc if you're more of a Word user than a Google Doc user, which is fine. And with PDFs, there's a helpful extension called Kami, which we have another video on, that allows students to edit PDFs or mark up PDFs rather, and submit them to Google Classroom as well. So you can just as easily add files, PDF files and Word files, make copies for each student, and expect them to be able to complete it. So I want to, and so I've just saved it as a draft for right now. The last feature I want to show you with assignments is that feature where students can edit. Now this can be helpful like if you want a collaborative assignment. So let's say I want Romeo and Juliet vocab, for instance. And I'll use the create button this time. I want to create a sheets for this that I want to have each and every student be able to edit so like they can fill in a vocab word. So if, for instance, let's say I have vocab word. We'll pretend this is vocab right here. I have a bunch of vocab words, and I want each student to fill out the definition for one. So I could put student name and definition. And I want each student to go into this document and add their name and add a definition for the word. Right? That would require one document. And it's a very nice little collaborative tool. Like you can do similar things with these with Google Docs, for instance, or presentations. You could use presentations to create note cards, or have students fill in missing information in a jigsaw in a Google Doc. You know, there's a lot of uses for this. But the way that they can be able to edit is you want to make sure that instead of students can view the file, students can edit the file. Then when they click on that link, they can edit the file, they can make those changes, they can collaborate together. So I think that this is a helpful tool when using assignments because it allows students to work in a more collaborative way and see their other students' work as well. A quiz assignment. Now this is a nifty little tool, especially if you are at Washburn and have Chromebooks, but is still handy anyway, especially if you don't like grading perhaps formative quizzes or just like a multiple choice thing. So this is a very helpful little tool because you can create quizzes, assign them on Google Classroom, have Google automatically grade it for you, and return a score. So we'll just say Romeo and Juliet comprehension quiz for the title, and automatically it creates a blank quiz for you. And so what you'll want to do is you want to click on this blank quiz so that you can edit and add questions. So you obviously want to change the title. We'll just say Romeo and Juliet Chapter 1. We can ask questions like, who are the main characters, for instance? And I'm assuming you already have a pretty good sense of how to use Google Forms. So, but I'll change it to options, so we could just say Romeo, Juliet. We can use a character from another book, Macbeth. And you can, in Google, you can create an answer key. So when you click answer key, you can select the right answers, choose how many points a question is worth, and click done. So now when your students answer this do this form, when they get to this question, they'll see that this question is worth 1 point, and they will have to choose answers, and once they submit, they will be able to see whether they got their answers right or wrong. When making quizzes, I would obviously make each question required. And there are multiple different things you can do. Like you can do a checkbox, you can do multiple choice. I'd be a little careful using quizzes with short answer and paragraphs. It's possible, but then when grading, I go back and check, because the way Google Forms grades with that answer key button on short answer and paragraphs is they look for you to have typed keywords, or sometimes look to the character that they've typed it correctly, like disregarding uppercase, lowercase. So I'd make sure that you would check any paragraph or short answer questions, just because there can be a little subjectivity to like spelling, perhaps, or capitalization that might make Google count it wrong, even if a student got it right. Once you've saved your quiz, you can just close it, and when you assign this assignment, students will see the blank quiz. They will click on the link. They can complete the quiz. When they hit submit, they will see their score, and their score will also submit to Google Classroom and mark this assignment as done. All right. You've gotten used to creating all these assignments and posting. It's also important to know that you can edit these if necessary. We're all human, we make mistakes, or sometimes we just decide to change the assignment. So what you'll notice is if you go up to each assignment in this classwork, you'll have these 3 little dots and the option to edit, delete, or you can move up or down, but you can also move by dragging and dropping. I'd say that editing and delete are the most useful features, because sometimes you just want to get rid of assignments, but more often than not you want to edit. It's important to note that after editing a form, you can no longer choose to assign it to multiple classes. You have to do that on your first go if you want to assign an assignment to multiple classes or multiple sections. But for the most part, you can edit the majority. So you could edit the quiz, for instance, or other attachments that you've added. You could add instructions like, please complete this quiz in class. I forgot to put that in there. I don't want students completing it outside of class. I could change the point value, and I could also change the due date. So you can change a lot about the assignment. You just can't change reposting it to multiple classes if you didn't do that initially. We'll just let it save. It's also important to note that with each classroom, there comes a Google Calendar and a class drive folder. So this class drive folder is where all of the documents that you create in Google Classroom get put to, as well as ones you upload. It makes a copy of them and puts it in a folder so it can find it. So for instance, going back to this Romeo and Juliet comprehension quiz, you'll notice this is a Google Forms. This is stored in this class drive folder. If you want to visit it, you can just click it. It'll take you to Google Drive. It'll take you to the class, and it'll show you some of the things I've done. So I have like that SID prep, the sonnet practice, I have that blank quiz, I have my Word document and PDF that I uploaded, I have that spreadsheet. This is where it's all gets stored. It's right here in that Google Drive folder that you can access right here. It's also interesting to note that if you're here, you have an assignment and students turn it in, you can double click on that folder and you can see what students turn in, like the students' submissions saved to this Google Drive folder as well. So the account or the name of the student in the class is Washburn Tech Tricks, and you can see that it has their file here, so I could also check their work in this folder, but there's an easier way to check their work that I will show you later. You can also use this Google Calendar feature, which will put the due dates that you assign to assignments on a calendar, so it's helpful to share that with students or use for your own sake when planning out assignments. I'm going to show you how to grade student work on Student Classroom. You'll notice that there's a Grades tab at the top of Google Classroom. I don't really recommend using it, because you can't actually see the work. It's more of like a gradebook style thing where you just enter in point values. You don't get to see the actual student work. And since this isn't the gradebook that MPS uses, I wouldn't waste your time filling in grades this way. Instead, what I'd recommend doing is going back to that Classwork tab and looking at an assignment that you know is past due and that students have submitted an assignment to. So I know that I have a student that has submitted an assignment to this SID 1 prep assignment that I created. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it. I'm going to click View Assignment. And as a teacher, automatically it pops up to the student work. You could also view it as instructions. This is what it'll look like to a student, minus they have the option to turn something in this corner on their screen. But this student work is where you are really interested, because you will see a list of your students. You'll see if they've turned it in or not. You'll see their documents here that they've submitted, and this is where you grade. So let's say I want to grade what Washburn Tech Tricks has done. I will just click on this document that they've submitted. It'll open it in a new window. You'll see, since it's a Google Doc, I can actually edit it should I so choose with editing features, but I also have a few extra tools over here. So like this is editing mode, grading mode. I can do comments. It shows you the file turned in. It gives you the date. It'll also list if it was late, if a student turned it in after a due date that you assign. Options to add a grade, and comments that you can add. So looking at this assignment, I think it looks pretty complete. The student answered each of the questions. I'll give them a 10 out of 10. What's important to notice though is all of a sudden you get this not returned up here. Whenever a student submits a Google file, like either a Google Doc, Google Sheet, Google presentation slides file, once they turn it in, ownership transfers from the student to you as the teacher. The teacher now owns it. The student can only view the document. They can no longer edit it. And the teacher holds ownership until they click this return. You usually want to return this. You usually want to return documents because not only does it give a student an opportunity to retain ownership of the document, but it also allows them to see this grade that you've put in, and it will send them an email saying, if they allow notifications, you received a 10 out of 10 on this assignment. So I will return this assignment to Washburn Tech Tricks. Now I only have one student, but you can just select the next student up here. You don't need to keep going back and forth between this assignment here, clicking on each individual one. You can just use these arrows up here to go between students and grade really efficiently and quickly. We're about done. The last little thing that I think is important to show is this People tab. Not many teachers know, but you can co-teach Google Classrooms. So currently I am the only teacher of this class, but should I want, I could invite another teacher to join this classroom and have the same power I have to create assignments, grade, etc. Most teachers also assume that you need to give students that class code that I mentioned at the beginning of the video to join classes, but you can also just invite students by entering their emails. So if you get a class roster, you can send a mass email to them with this, inviting them to Google Classroom. This can sometimes save time, as all they have to do is check their email and click accept. It's also important to notice that you will see enrolled students, and you have options to email the student, or you can select the student and remove or mute them. Mute them means you don't get notifications from them when they submit stuff or post stuff in the stream. Remove means, as I'm sure you can guess, removing them from the class. And so that would be if you have an accidental sign up or something, or a student changes hours. But that's all for the basics of Google Classroom. I hope this video was helpful. Thanks for watching.